LA is a city that it became what it became because there was a free-for-all of development. Railroads came and a whole bunch of development came with it, and it came and was burgeoning because it was a free-for-all. And one of the most important things that we can do, is the most sustainable thing we can do, is reuse the buildings that we've had and that are here and not take them down. A huge amount of energy was spent building them, so all these resources were used to build them. They're there, and it takes resources to demolish them, and then resources to again build something new. So to the extent that we can reuse them, that's fantastic.
I mean, I think that the loft conversion stuff and the reuse of old buildings, the adaptive reuse ordinance, it certainly has its problems and its flaws and its critics. But I think that you could at least say that it promotes sort of sustainable living.
None of the housing downtown would have been possible. None of the renovation of the old buildings would have been possible if the city had not passed a adaptive reuse ordinance.
Things really changed in the decades following, especially in the late 90s. That area has sort of it's come back in a big way as a result of the adaptive reuse ordinance in 1999 and loft development. And that stuff I think really relates to sustainability in that it doesn't require new construction. It's reusable materials, so there's this historical sort of preservation side to things. And these are kind of, it retains the same social fabric. You know, when you're constructing new things, I think you're always, there's always the potential you're doing more environmental harm than good.
Because of the ordinance, all these old buildings started getting reused. So then we had this revival of old spaces. It's not a revival of lofts so much as these industrial spaces. It became economically feasible for these old industrial spaces and office buildings that were abandoned to become viable residential areas.
The adaptive reuse of historic buildings like the National Biscuit Company in downtown puts even more focus on the trend of green building principle.
These are gorgeous designer living spaces. They're opening today for tours. We're going to take you there first, though. We're going to give you the best seat in the house.
A year to get it from when we got the project to get it into construction, and it was about a 1.5-year construction process. So it was actually quite amazing.
The Biscuit Company Lofts and the Toy Factory Lofts, both developed by the same company. Linear City came on later in the story of lofts in LA.
And they did the Toy Factory, which is the gray building across the street from this. And one who had the vision to buy as many buildings as they could in that area and to close an industrial street and to make it into a community.
That's sort of its own neighborhood, the Toy Factory and Biscuit Company Lofts. Diversity of land uses in a neighborhood is central to sustainable design, or it should be.
We want to put business places near homes and homes near retail and grocery stores so people can walk and bicycle to things.
I mean, ideally, you would tie into something that's already there. I mean, you don't use the mall approach where everywhere you plop housing down, you provide all the uses there. The most sustainable way to do this is share these resources. You know, it seemed to me that the general approach was always, oh, newer is better, and anything old, let's just get rid of it, it's cheaper, and unfortunately it seems to often be cheaper. I mean, this building, dealing with a building like this is complicated. You have all these conditions, you don't know what's behind, and you start opening it up, and
it's cheaper to build a new building.
It's cheaper to build a new building, and that's a really bad thing.
I think, historic conservation, it should be central. It should be one of the core sort of facets of sustainable design.
But I think what has been out of lack here is that we don't value our materials. We just go, okay, this costs this much, this costs this much, and we don't look at what does it cost to produce all this waste.
It's interesting. In one of the interviews that I conducted with a developer in downtown LA, we were talking about this LEED certification business. He was saying that adaptive reuse, as it stands, doesn't contribute at all to one's LEED certification or one's LEED score. And it's just bizarre. It seems to me that the LEED certification thing is a little shaky if it's pushing new construction of buildings over a reuse of things that are still functional. So I think in short, yeah, certainly loft development is historic preservation, and certainly is more sustainable than basically any other mode of development. I wish the LEED standards, the U.S. Building Council would sort of start recognizing them as such.